It's lights out and away we go here, and Bottas and Hamilton getting away ahead of Verstappen and Perez, and the wheel-to-wheel the Mercedes. But what's happening behind? Perez pulls to the inside, Verstappen to the outside.
Hola Formula 1 and IndyCar fans, welcome to Formula Pun Racer. Today is November 13th, 2021. I'm here today to give you my review on the Mexican Grand Prix, which took place back on the 7th of November. And boy, was it a race that turned out one to remember, because the crowds were there in full force for the first time since 2019, and it was the first time this season that Mercedes would complete the front row, with Valtteri Bottas of Finland on pole, and Lewis Hamilton starting second, and the Flying Dutchman, Max Verstappen of the Red Bull Honda, right in third, as you would probably usually expect. From the start at the first lap, it was one to remember, as Max Verstappen was starting to gain on some positions from there, and eventually take the lead from Bottas. It would seem that in the first corner, Valtteri Bottas' pole-sitting dominant ways would be chopped up by Daniel Ricciardo, shown here.
We're on board with Ricciardo, who locks up, then makes contact with Bottas. Perez dives off onto the grass, and then there's...
While Daniel Ricciardo of Australia, they call the Honey Badger, did apologize to Valtteri Bottas for pitting him into that spin and pretty much costing him any chance of winning the race, that was just the beginning of the schlamazel that occurred on the first lap in the first corner. A few seconds later, Alpine-Renault driver Esteban Ocon, Yuki Tsunoda of AlphaTauri, and Mick Schumacher of Haas Ferrari had quite a bouncy themselves, with unfortunately Mick and Yuki coming off worse.
Ocon, who makes contact with a Haas, and then you see the AlphaTauri coming into shot on the left-hand side.
While Yuki Tsunoda and Mick Schumacher were the only retirements of the race was pretty much uneventful, and Bottas would continue to struggle throughout the race. So when all was lost and he was already 2 laps down near the end, the best thing he would do is take a late pit stop on the freshest tires he could get, so he could at least get the fastest lap of the race, to which he did, despite finishing 15th, and give himself an extra point for the fastest lap of the race. But up ahead, no one could beat Max Verstappen, who took over the lead from Bottas and Hamilton, and wouldn't let go except to take a green flag pit stop. During that time, he lost the lead. Before regaining it, it would be his Mexican teammate, Sergio Perez, who would lead the Mexican Grand Prix for the first time in his life, and the first time any Mexican has actually led on home soil in Formula 1. So, congrats on that, Sergio, and the crowds were definitely enjoying that. Unfortunately, because it was a pit cycle that had to go through under green flag conditions, Sergio would ultimately have to pit for fresh tires, but it was only one stop for him as well as his teammate. Max retook the lead and never looked back, leaving Lewis Hamilton in his dust by 7 seconds at the very least. And with a few laps to go, Sergio Perez came close to retaking second place from Lewis Hamilton's Mercedes, but he just ran out of laps. But he was gaining and the gap was closing, while the gap between Hamilton and Verstappen was continuing to get wider. So how about that? Red Bull, the term where Bull and Matador became one in Mexico, they finally did it. Mexico Verstappen took it to the max in Mexico, and I say, Max, congrats for taking it to the max, making it your own Mexican Grand Prix. Ole to Red Bull! And with their double points finish on the podium, Red Bull is now just 1 point behind Mercedes in the Constructors' title, while Max Verstappen continues to extend his points lead over Lewis Hamilton in the driver's title. And so, with the next round just less than 24 hours away as of this recording, is the Interlagos circuit in Brazil, the hometown of Ayrton Senna, the great racing legend, who even now is remembered by all and loved by everyone as well. And right now, Max Verstappen is said to have the second place starting finish. Valtteri Bottas will be on pole, but Lewis Hamilton will be incurring a starting place penalty about more than 10 positions because of a DRS infringement that will be pretty costly to him. That parts of his DRS, which is the drag reduction system, which opens up the rear wing to let air flow and reduce turbulence at high straight circuit parts of the track, was too wide, basically, according to regulations. Like DRS, for those of you who don't know, is when a car is on a fast straightaway that's before a corner, they have the option, the drivers, to open up their rear wings like this, which decreases downforce and makes the car go faster. and then it closes when it is time to slow down and brake for a sharp turn. So basically, like the DRS on Hamilton's Mercedes in practice for the Brazilian Grand Prix was deemed as illegal, and he's been disqualified from all qualification runs. So he's got a lot of ground to make up in tomorrow's Brazilian Grand Prix, which you can find out right here. Are you ready to samba down? Get the maracas ready for the Brazilian Grand Prix, huh? And now to get on to some other news from Formula 1, I draw my attention, something I usually don't do, NASCAR news. Because there have been talks recently that a new engine manufacturer, or just constructors you could say, is considering joining NASCAR, but this is neither confirmed or denied. And what would it be, joining Toyota, Chevy, and Ford in NASCAR most likely in the future? It is most likely Dodge, but if they do come back, the rivals of NASCAR, Ford, Toyota, and Chevy, better watch out.
Hey, watch out!
But the real reason I talk NASCAR news in my video is not about the potential of Dodge possibly returning to NASCAR in the future, but the outcome of the NASCAR season, which occurred on the same date as the Mexican Grand Prix. What you see before you here is a model of KyleLarson's 2019 Dover Downs race car that he took to victory. His last victory with Team Ganassi, in fact. I only got this car because I like how it looks, and it's just a coincidence that it's KyleLarson's car. For those who don't know, he may not have drove to success in this particular car like this year, but this is where it gets interesting. To those of you who don't know, KyleLarson, back in April 2020, said the one word that must never ever be said that the whole world practically heard, and he got himself in deep, deep trouble right away, getting suspended and then fired by his team, Chip Ganassi Racing, losing all his sponsors like Clover especially, and having his license from NASCAR suspended indefinitely. A lot of people were not happy about him, that's for sure. Naturally, though, he publicly apologized for everything, even though I'm sure we can expect not everyone to forgive him for this, or they don't buy into it. But I believe in him, especially because it seems like it's bizarre, the fact that he said the one word that must never ever be said. It's coming from a guy with Japanese descent in him, because for those of you who don't know, his full name is Kyle Larson. I wouldn't have guessed he had Japanese roots in him until I read into it. But that's another story. The point is that after going through some sensitivity training throughout the year of 2020, his NASCAR license would be reinstated by New Year's Day. And who would pick him up when Ganassi wouldn't, or any other team for that matter, considering the liability he'd created himself out of? It turned out to be Hendrick Motorsport, the very same team that gave people like Jeff Gordon, Jimmy Johnson, and last year's champion, Chase Elliott, their champions. Not only would KyleLarson nab the second chance with Hendrick Motorsports by but he would also set records throughout the season. One of them is leading almost 2,600 laps throughout the entire season, taking the most wins in those season, 9 of them before the season finale. And the best part is that at the season finale at Phoenix, he took the pole. It was a ding-dong struggle between him and his 3 top competitors for the championship, Denny Hamlin and Martin Truex Jr. of Joe Gibbs, and his own teammate Chase Elliott trying to make a back-to-back championship victory. But in the end, on the final caution of the race, the pit crew of Larson made a vital move in making sure that their final pit stop would turn out flawlessly. And they just barely managed to get KyleLarson out into the lead by the skin of his teeth. And you could say then, he just managed to barely hang on to the lead, holding off Martin Truex to take his first NASCAR Winston Cup championship. So I say, congratulations, Larson, for your recent comeback and a way to bounce back from embarrassment to prove yourself that you are a champion of the future. If that's not a headline for NASCAR, I don't know what is. So, you may not be dressing in green anymore, but you still get some green jackpot. And I bet on you to win, Kyle, if you're watching this, because I know that you did wrong, and well, nobody's happy about that, but I believed in your apologies, and I was hoping, even though I don't care much for NASCAR, that you would make your way back. And because I had faith in you, I want some money too, so I say, thank you very much, Kyle. We both won. Oops. No doubt about it, with Kyle winning the championship in the final race of the season, that means he's raked in 10 NASCAR race victories during the 2021 season. And I'm sure even the Ganassi boys were cheering him on despite what he'd done. And who replaced Kyle at Ganassi when he was cut loose, you ask? At first it was 2003 champion Matt Kenseth, but then he would be replaced in the Clover 42 by Ross Chastain, who in the Phoenix race in the season finale this past Sunday finished 14th. Not a bad way for Ganassi to wrap up their NASCAR program, which they've sold now to Trackhouse, which will be taking over operations starting in 2022. So that way Ganassi will be able to focus more on his IndyCar, Extreme E, and sports car programs. I wonder if Clover will follow him into IndyCar racing, because that'd be neat to see that sponsor his IndyCar program. It happened 2 years ago at the 2019 Mid-Ohio race, when Felix Rosenqvist in a one-race deal drove with Clover sponsorship, finishing second behind his teammate Scott Dixon. Not bad, huh? And they say green is bad luck in racing? I beg to differ. As I said, before Kyle got fired from Ganassi, his last Ganassi victory in NASCAR was with a Clover sponsorship at Dover Downs, which he did donuts without his steering wheel attached. And naturally, Jimmy Clark won the Indy 500 in 1965 with a green car with some yellow stripes, his Lotus Ford 38, which took him to victory. And like I said in a previous video, like Bentley, Aston Martin, and Jaguar have all won sports car races covered in green, so I don't see why green is considered bad luck in racing. And besides, it means go, go, go! The green flag and all. And I'm sure that while we're in a bit of a racing doldrum waiting for IndyCar racing to return, even though there's 4 races left in the F1 season, we're all ready to see the green lights go on and the green flag to fly.
Green, 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 green.
Hook up!
Now with KyleLarson a NASCAR champion, there have been talks that he is considered racing in the Indy 500 next year, possibly under the Penske banner, but I don't know if that's possible, because I'm sure with his full-time commitment in NASCAR, the fact that Coca-Cola 600 in Charlotte, North Carolina takes place the same day as the Indy 500, that would be quite a tall order, although Kyle still has expressed interest in racing in the Indy 500 someday. I hope it happens. But if there's any other NASCAR driver that I'm more interested in seeing race in the Indy 500, which seems like a big possibility, which would be Jimmy Johnson, who was a 7-time NASCAR champion with Rick Hendrick, and is now driving with KyleLarson's former team, Chip Ganassi. As Chip Ganassi, the old man's off the old block alright, is said to enter 5 cars for the 2022 Indy 500. 4 of them will obviously be driven by Tony Kanaan, Alex Palou, this year's 2021 IndyCar champion, Scott Dixon, and Marcus Ericsson, and Jimmy Johnson is most likely to be the 5th Ganassi entry. Kyle Kirkwood was testing for Andretti Autosport a few weeks ago back at Barber Park, but it is said that he is now slated to take over the number 14 car at AJ Foyt Enterprises from Sebastian Bourdais. So where does that leave Bourdais and Canada's Dalton Kellett? We're not sure at this point. So Devlin DeFrancesco of Canada will be replacing his fellow countryman James Hinchcliffe in the number 29 car at Andretti Autosport, leaving Colton Herta safe and secure in his number 26. When I was saying that he might go to F1 through the Andretti talks with Sauber, which fell through, if Herta hadn't made this, like if Andretti was successful and had a controlling stake in the team, which he unfortunately failed to negotiate because Sauber didn't agree to these terms at all, that he would have probably thrown Colton right in there. But Colton says he's more interested in Indy cars, it seems. My mistake, as I said in my last video. So they assuming that Colton went into F1 right from the very start, Devlin DeFrancesco and Kyle Kirkwood probably would have been Herta's replacement, but since Herta can't be left, Kirkwood is out, Herta stays right back in, and Devlin DeFrancesco of Canada, another Indy Lights racer, will be taking James Hinchcliffe's spot in the number 29. So at least we still have a Canadian full-time at Andretti Autosport, eh? Unfortunately, if you were hoping for some results from Nico Hülkenberg of Germany, who test drove for the McLaren Schmidt-Peterson team that same time, he has opted out for personal reasons, so not this year will we have any German racers in IndyCars. Thanks for watching, Formula 1 and IndyCar fans. If you like, please subscribe to my channel, Formula Pun Racer, and hit the notification bell for future videos. And please comment as well. I love hearing all your comments, and I love to respond to them. And tell me, do you think Max Verstappen in the Red Bull will maintain his points lead? And do you think Red Bull will win the Constructors' title? Or do you think Lewis Hamilton will win his record 8th championship? And do you think KyleLarson has what it takes or believes that he can go to the Indy 500 to race someday? Please let me know your input. And I look forward to sharing more future videos with you. And once again, stay tuned for tomorrow's race at the Interlagos circuit in Brazil, and we'll see who sambas his way into victory lane. See you in the next video, everyone. I'm Aaron Cylinder, firing on all cylinders.